good Thursday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you for just a few minutes here before we get to the live replay. I should say it's not live, it's a replay show. We got Miss Ruth Guggenheim with us tonight, Guggenheim, and she's from Enumah Israel, and we're grateful that you all have joined us. This is the beginning of a doubleheader tonight, possibly a triple header. We may be on late to do a new show. There's a lot of breaking news tonight, but I'm going to save that for later because I want to give Miss Ruth full coverage tonight, and we're airing this on the E-Network and Facebook tonight, and we may open it up on our Faith Network later, but especially on our E-Network. We're going to be sharing with you. It's about a 35-minute interview with this first show tonight, and then we're going to turn right around. Now we're going to cut the feed, and then Bill Federer will be following her right back to back. It's going to be back-to-back shows. And so stick around with us tonight. Bill's interview lasts a little longer than hers. But we got a Thursday night full of McFiles. We'll call it entertainment, but this is going to be a very touching interview with Ruth. It's very powerful. She was great before, and she's great again tonight. And we hope that you'll enjoy her. And we'll be back with a few final thoughts after this. But before any further ado, here's Miss Ruth Guggenheim from Enumah Israel. And we hope you'll enjoy this interview tonight. And I'll be back to say goodbye to you briefly, and then we'll have Bill Federer following her and so forth. Our prayers for the people of Israel continually tonight in a very, very troublesome time that they're going through as a nation. And you're going to hear a little bit tonight about that with our dear friend, Miss Ruth Guggenheim, who we really cherish and we appreciate her very much. And I hope that you will too tonight. Here's Ruth and the Mac Man. Will be back after this. Be blessed out there tonight. Great to have you on this Thursday night, early bird, McFiles Thursday. Good evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you on this special pre-recorded interview with my dear friend, Miss Ruth Guggenheim, and I hope I didn't murder her name too bad, but it is so good to see her again. We had her back on a few months ago, right after the horrible attacks on Israel in October, and Ruth, it's so good to see you back. You've got a great organization. We're very honored to be friends with you, and I felt like, we hit off just instantaneously. I've said this on the show. We've had guests that have come over we're 6 years old. We'll be 7 years old this coming March. And, there's guests that come, and, we love all our guests. We do. And then there's other guests that just leave an impression with you, and you just pray, man, you hope you stay in touch with those folks. And you've been one of them, and I'm grateful that you're back on the show tonight. And there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things happened even since we've talked. There's been a lot of these hostages that have been released, and we're going to sort of get an update from you what's going on the ground there in Israel. But welcome. Let me stop and welcome you to the show first. Good to have you back on the McFiles tonight. We're grateful to have you, my friend. I really appreciate you.
It is wonderful to be back with you. And as you said, I felt right away also the connection. So with you and your listeners, even though I don't see them, but I really appreciate your giving Enumah, where I work, an opportunity to become a part of your family, and you become a part of our family. And Israel needs all the blessings and love we can have. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
We're grateful to have you. And hopefully the next time we have you, we and Ruth were talking, we're going to try to get her on live. She may have to stay up a little later than she is tonight to do that, but we're going to get her on live. Tonight is pre-recorded. Listen, let's talk about a few things. Since we've last talked, roughly 150 of these hostages have been released by the Hamas. And I know that you've told me that you've talked to a few of the survivors. But I'm just curious, what are you hearing on the ground where you're at as to the condition of these folks coming out of captivity? Ruth, I've heard some horrific stories of these children being starved, tortured. I'm not talking about the adults. I'm just talking about isolating children. Look, the sexual abuse, that is a subject that's going to be discussed for years to come, of the sexual atrocities that these butchers and these barbaric Hamas terrorists have basically put women and men through. I read a report on World Israel News that some of the men that have come back have been basically saying, look, it wasn't just a woman thing. They were doing some dastardly debauchery things to me.
There was rape across the board, apparently. And yes, it affected a number of young men who, according to what they're sharing, was some horrific rape, man to men, which is actually, Chris, shocking, simply because Muslim world doesn't believe in
Great point.
a gay lifestyle. So
That's right. No,
kind
you're
of goes
right.
against their religious belief system. But these are terrorists, and I guess they figure anything goes. We are seeing a huge amount of trauma that will take years, if ever, to absolve for the children, especially. Many of them were kept in complete isolation. When you're a child, one, you don't even know if your family members are alive, and you're being kept in. Some of them were in cages for a while. Some were isolated. One young man, and I did not speak to him, so I don't want to say I did, but from the readings I've gotten,
Right.
the reports and the articles that we've all read, he was talking about he was subjected to constantly looking at the videos of the attack on October 7th. Like, he had to keep seeing those videos over and over of the attack on his home and on his community. That alone is traumatizing, unbelievable. And it's interesting. Some of the other things we're reading, when they first let some of the people out, the first hostage exchange, people were saying, "Oh, they look so happy, they're smiling, and they look great." And it came out that they were drugged. I mean,
Right,
they
exactly.
made them, they drugged them in order that they would put on a good face to the world. And also, remember, these are people that were brutalized and traumatized. You're going to do anything at that moment to just get away. If they tell you to smile for the camera, you're going to smile, because your goal is to get the other side, to get out of there, and you're going to do what you need to do. Now, there was a video that just came out maybe 2 days ago of three elderly gentlemen, and one of them is. I'll tell you honestly, Chris, I couldn't watch it. I didn't want to see the humiliation that they would put these old men through. I saw some of the older women or younger women who came out, and they were, they put out videos and they spoke publicly, and many of us, everybody here listens to them. But, when I saw that video come across my screen, I said, there's a teaching in Judaism that you should never humiliate anybody, that's like
Right.
that's like death. You shouldn't talk evil of other people. You shouldn't talk lashon hara, which is called evil speech against others. And the last thing you should do is to humiliate anyone. And the goal is always to protect individuals, and certainly elderly gentlemen. So you said you saw it though?
I saw
Did you watch the
the
video?
video. I didn't watch the video, but I was reading the report. It was brutal stuff. And again, I get updates from several Israeli news sources, and that caught my attention because, again, Ruth, what you're saying and what we've known, people, at least with a brain in this country, know that this attack was never about military things. This was a barbaric attack on the humanity of Israel, the humanity of the world, from young to old. Young to old. And you go back, I got a dear friend, he's a very historical, astute guy. And we've talked about this privately and publicly. And the parallels between what happened on October the 7th and what the Nazis did to the Jewish people in the Holocaust cannot be ignored. And this was the worst attack on the Jewish soul since the Holocaust itself, where 6 million Jews were slaughtered in gas camps all over Europe and really the world. And they targeted the elderly then. They're targeting the elderly now. They didn't care. They did this indiscriminately. There was no humanity to it. None.
Well, and also, now it's coming out in the world who chooses to listen to the truth is finding out that all along Israel's been saying, this has been going on for 15 years. Israel's been saying that they're using their hospitals, as centers of terror, and that this is where their offices are, their social media offices, that this is the center of where they're conducting their operation. People never believed it, no matter what we showed the world in the past. So now people still don't believe it. But thank God there are people such as yourself and your followers and other Christian friends who really, they get it. They understand, and now when you have more people coming from America, and the government is taking like American government officials and actors and different things down to these locations, and they're seeing firsthand that, hey, maybe the Jews have been saying the truth all along. Maybe the Israeli government really knew what they were talking about for the last 10 years. We chose to be ignorant because we, meaning the world, most of us could never fathom that you would use a hospital or a baby's bedroom to store military, that you would have rockets under a crib. They're taking pictures of all this, that you would have a massive tunnel entrance out of a baby's room, or in the hospitals that, there's now a video that just came out, and you may have seen it. The director, the
Yes.
doctor of the
Yes.
hospital is admitting that their hospital has been used all
Used
along
Hamas.
as a
Absolutely.
Hamas center, and that they did bring in and out the terrorists, and they did bring in and out the hostages, and how they use ambulance. For years and years, we were showing that certain ambulances that were being paid for generously by people all over the world who did want to help the innocent, and they would send more and more money to the hospitals and to the ambulances, and donate ambulances. Well, one whole group, all these ambulances were being used for hostages inappropriately. They were being used to transport terrorists for years. I mean, all this is coming out now. So inside this horrible war we are, I think God is also helping to get some of the truth out for those who choose to listen. As you know, Chris, there are always going to be people that no matter what, you can be hit over the head and you still don't believe what you're seeing or hearing. But
No,
I
I'm with
think
you. Absolutely.
and when you ask that with the hostages, I'm telling you, because as Enumah, as one of the things I shared with you and your listeners the first time, our biggest thing is crisis, one of our biggest things. And one of the things that we can step up to the plate now with the war is to provide national trauma and crisis counseling, because we're already set up for that. We already have a huge team of trauma counselors, and now we're just expanding the team, and they're being trained and they're being sent. We have 13 centers in the country, but they're being deployed in other areas. And we're starting to promote the fact that we have hotlines now. So most people will not come face to face. They'll do Zoom meetings, they'll do calls, but we don't even know the numbers of people that will need counseling indefinitely, let alone, I can tell you, almost every single Israeli family here, Chris, Jewish and not Jewish, have experienced loss of loved ones. I'm sure you read that amazing story about the young Christian who gave his life, and his family has been righteous Gentiles for a couple of generations. It is so sad that he died, but I'll tell you, he died knowing he was protecting his family, God's family, all of us, and he was fighting the right cause. His soul should be blessed, and he should have what we say in Judaism. We never say really rest in peace. People don't know this because we believe your soul always has an aliyah. Your soul goes from the physical world here to the spiritual realm. It is raised up to the spiritual realm of heaven. So his soul is most definitely up there, and many others. But it's just sad to see so many young lives lost.
It is. And, Ruth, I think the trauma, you think about these children, these are things, because a lot of these kids, some of them are young enough that perhaps our prayers are that they're going to be so young they may not remember it. But ultimately, this trauma is going to last with these kids forever. And
the only ones that, well, first of all, those babies that were left without mothers or fathers and siblings, they will always have that loss with them. They could be the 9 months old, the 12 months old. If you lost your parent, you're going to know it no matter what, because no matter how loving the rest of the family is that's going to raise you, you will know that mom and dad, Ima and Abba, are no longer with me. So they will never be totally healed. We can help them heal on some level, but there's always going to be scars.
Do you, we talked about this a little bit last time, and, this has also changed since we've talked last. When we talked before, it was right after the attack, a few weeks, and this administration was all rah. Israel. Biden had just been over there. He had basically went to see Prime Minister Netanyahu, and Blinken had been over there, and a few other officials. And now, all of a sudden, it's like we're listening to a completely different narrative here in this country from this administration. And now he's claiming that Israel needs to bring this to a halt immediately. They're losing world support. I'm hearing things like, and the war cry, not the war cry, but the cry is getting louder among the media and these elites and these so-called know-it-alls, these smart boys, as I call them, we call them down south, that don't know a thing. But they believe that, cutting Israel's aid off is going to get Israel's attention. And I think that's disastrous for our nation. I think it'd be the worst thing that could ever happen if we do something like that, spiritually and politically. But as we talk now, do you still hold out hope that America is going to hold the line and support Israel through this? Because I don't think this is over by any long shot. I don't care. I know I've been reading a lot of reports in the last few days that Israel's made some great progress cleaning out a lot of these terrorists. But the war, Ruth, I don't think ends even after they clear these terrorists out, because there's still going to be threats from the Gaza, and there's still threats to your north. There's threats in Syria. Look, the United States must be tone deaf. We're getting hit in our nation by missiles from Yemen, and Yemen is sending missiles across. Iraq sending.
And who are the Houthis? I mean, like, they're not a military of a state.
Exactly.
They are a real terrorist group.
They are.
And they have no state identity per se, and yet they're a militia, and they're being treated, or they're acting like they're a full-fledged army of a true nation.
Well, they are. And again, that's my point, is that we're tone deaf to the fact they're attacking our ships, and there's still hostages in that Gaza Strip that I don't know what's going to be their future. I'm praying for their release. But every day that goes by, it's just the law of averages, my friend. The less time that you get them out, the more risk that you're never going to get them out. And it's just like this administration has gone tone deaf to the American families, because our families are over here screaming to this administration, where's our people? What are you doing? And we're getting our officials telling us they don't even know where they're at. And then, Israel's still got people there. The Jewish folks have got people there, families, mothers, dads, brothers, sisters, children. And where do you see this right now as far as the support of America with Israel? It's very troubling. It troubles me. It may not trouble
all of us here. But Chris, one thing you say too is when you say there's still Jewish people as hostages, but what's unique is there isn't just Jewish people. There are people from many other countries and America still. There are still Americans held hostage. And I never quite understood, and I think this will be one of the $1 million questions, is why none of these other countries are fighting for their own hostages. This is against national law. I mean, they were taken hostages, and they were doing nothing wrong. They were, especially people, if you say, okay, all Israelis or all Jews are colonists, and we took over this or that, and you don't even know the facts, at least you have something you think you're blaming on us. But the innocent people who have been here, some of them were just here, visiting. Some of them were making an innocent income. They were working on the kibbutzim, in agriculture, and they were, doing some of the labor. They came here to make a living for themselves. And these were innocent people who are not Jewish or anything. And yet, the Hamas just came and took all of them and basically ruined their lives also. Yes, we are worried here. We always have been. We knew that ultimately, certainly in this administration, he was going to change his mind sooner or later, because he's a weak president. Yes. He's a weak and I believe confused president. And he doesn't have the sense of clarity that is necessary, not only in a time like this, but just in general. But certainly in a time like this, you can't, Israel is the only country that it seems like they just want us to end whatever wars. Look, I don't think this October 7th would never have happened if we were able to have done what needed to be done with Hamas and those tunnels and all the things that Israel knew for years and years and years. If every time these little wars started in March and we were being attacked by rockets and balloons and fire and this and that, if we could have gone in then and contained the situation, it would never have blown up into this level. But we couldn't contain it because there's also, on some level, there's a fear that we should not go against America, which is our biggest ally and supporters. And we do need, on different fronts, that support. I think more and more Israelis, though, may be questioning right now, even though, yes, America is our greatest ally and has almost always stood behind us, at least for a given point, then they turn. But I think there's going to be a complete reassessment here of both, not only the government here, but certainly how we look at our allies and who are our true friends. And how much, or should we be relying as heavily as we do? That's always been a dialogue here. We should not be relying so much on our friends.
Well said, and I agree totally with you on that. And also in relation to this, and again, words matter. And again, when governments speak, the world stage, and Joe Biden, you're right, he's not just weak, but look, there's some things going on up here with him, and I'm not trying to make light of that. Look, it's very serious. People make fun of it in this country, and it's not nothing to be laughing about, because this guy's got the nuclear codes for the entire world, and you don't want those in the hands of somebody that's unstable. And that's my word for him. I mean, he is absolutely unstable, but yet I hear him say things like, well, we don't, we demand Israel this, we demand Israel do this, we demand her not reoccupy the Gaza, as if he is trying to tell Israel what to do with their own government. You all are a legitimate autonomous government, Ruth. This is Israel's call. It's not America's call. And I'm with you. I know that the concern is, well, if we go against the Americans, then they're going to pull their aid. And look, I'm not even talking politically here. This is a spiritual matter to me. Look, if America wants God's blessing, they're going to bless Israel. They want God's cursing, they're going to curse Israel. That's just a principle going back to the days of Abraham. And we've seen this play out over and over and over through the years with our nations, that we are connected, but whenever America betrays Israel, God takes his hand of blessing off his country. My question to you, whenever this military part ceases, what is the most challenging part that comes next? Does Israel rethink the two states thing? We talked about that a little bit too the first time. And is there anything that has changed in the thinking of the Israeli government and among Israelis in general, and maybe in Israel, about this whole peace process? Because I've been reading a lot of commentary that probably 10 years ago, and this was going back to Bush Jr. and maybe his daddy and other Clinton and all of them, that was pushing this two-state, solution, that if we can just get the Palestinians a state, things would be peaceful and ponderosa and all that. And I think a lot of Israelis are realizing it's never been about the land. They just want y'all dead. And I don't mean that lightly this evening, my friend. They just want you dead. What say you?
Right. So one of the biggest changes I would say that's happened is that even there used to be over the years it was shrinking, but a significant number of people 10 years ago were still 5 years ago hoping for a two-state solution. There's always been people here that believe that if we only if we had the two-state solution here, there would be peace. But now I don't know anybody. I don't know any Israeli saying that. I'm not saying there aren't. But right. Whether you're from the left or the right or the center, almost everyone is saying, forget it. The two-state solution, there is no such thing. How can you have a peace partner when they keep saying they want us dead? They're not saying Israel has no right to exist. They're also saying that the Jews have no right to exist.
Bingo.
When you talk about from the river to the sea, people in America who are so naive, because they're naive, period, because they don't really know what they're talking about. Many of these younger people who are going to all these pro-Palestinian rallies, you're allowed, you can have your own belief system, but know the facts and understand that they're not talking about a two-state solution here. They're talking about eliminating the Jewish people. The only country that is a Jewish nationality of all the countries in the world, and how many Arab countries are they? 26, I think, huge countries, all Muslim, with a few very small percentage of Christians there, let alone even no Jews left anymore. So, people don't realize, no matter what we've tried, the whole Oslo Accords now are proving how dangerous the Oslo Accords were. But the Israeli government and the Israeli people went in good faith, with true emunah, with true faith, that if we give only land, that there will be peace, and it's worth it, even though nobody wants to give up our land. We didn't want to give up Gush Katif or the Gaza or anything like that. We had no choice. This was what we were hoping for, peace. Our children, our families, our loved ones, our soldiers mean far more than land.
So true.
So they were willing to give that up, only now to realize it was a bad decision, obviously. So now it's not even on the table for us.
if it's not on the table, then this becomes a very complicated question, and one you may not. I don't think any of us got an answer. I don't have an answer. I've been thinking about this, is where does Israel go from here then? Because she's still going to have these enemies in her backyard, Ruth. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, again, you can eliminate every Hamas terrorist out there. You got an ideology that is festering like a cancer in the center of this beautiful land of Zion, this land of the Bible, this land of God. Israel's is God's city. It's David's city, the city of David. And, you know, Jerusalem. And then you look at the southern part, this beautiful land that we as Christians, we read about in our Bibles, and we weep over Jerusalem. We weep over these stories because we see this Bethlehem. You know, this is the time of the season over here. We're celebrating the Lord's birth, and it's being torn to pieces by war and unstrife. And then out of the ashes of this tragedy, Israel's being told by the world, well, you got to negotiate with these people. You got to have peace with these people. And you said it beautifully. There is no peace. Peace is a two-sided affair. Last time I checked, you can't have peace with the devil. You just can't. And where do they go from here? Do you have any thoughts on that, an opinion? I mean, I know there's not a right or wrong answer to that. I don't know where they go from here, at least politically. I've got an idea spiritually, but I don't know.
Politically, I can't answer that, and I'm so not a politician. I think we all have to look to God for the answer.
Absolutely.
And I think he has certainly, even if we don't always understand God's plan, there is a plan. And a lot of this is preordained. A lot of it is prophetic. A lot of it is certainly in the Bible. That doesn't make it always so easy, though, Chris. I'll be honest. I mean, those of us who have true emunah, who have true belief, and we believe in God, we believe in the Torah, we believe it's our land, we believe in destiny based on Torah values, it doesn't make it any easier. And the fact remains is the politicians for 50 years have been making huge mistakes in this country.
Yeah.
And this didn't just happen in an isolated situation. And, you know, I think, as we talked, I think last time, you know, there was the protests here in the country regarding the judicial reform and everything. And you had the biggest split in Israeli society, Jew against Jew, hating each other for political reasons. You know, you said, she said, he said, we said, and it's just, and
like
I think, first of all, God couldn't stand the bickering anymore, and he had to do something. But that doesn't, you know, negate the government had their eyes too shut, and they were so worried about themselves. You know, I think that was a big problem, and we have been shaken to our core. So I can't, Chris, I would love to have a magic ball or say definitely this is what God's plan is. We don't know. I pray sincerely, and we could use all the prayers we can get from your followers, that God will see us through with strength and unity, and God willing, we will stay on this land forever. We are not meant to be kicked off again.
That's right, buddy. We got about 10 minutes. Quick fire questions for you, a few of them, and then we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you again tonight. We're looking forward to a lot of these, and I know you're coming over to the States in 24, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person in Memphis at the NRB this year. But few quick questions here. The college testimony of these deans that went before Congress, I'm sure you saw some of the testimony. These college campuses is the same the
ones in America?
The ones in America.
You mean,
Harvard, yes. MIT, and Penn.
Yeah.
Are y'all experiencing the same thing at your universities that we are over here like that?
No, but I'll tell you, we are watching the growing anti-Semitism and unbelievable things that are being said and done, especially in America. I mean, it's all over the world for sure. But when you have three of the most, prominent universities who are always, you know, who are well funded by Jewish philanthropists, who have, you know, turned out many scholars that are from the Jewish faith also, that they can't even have clarity and how they all three spoke at the Congress. It's like unbelievable, right? You know, in context of what? That a gun's being held to our head? I mean, that they couldn't even denounce the growing anti-Semitism, which means they're not just denouncing it, but they're endorsing it on their own level, because these are supposed to be leaders. And clearly the academic world has turned upside down. Alan Dershowitz writes a lot about
Yes.
this. Alan Dershowitz,
Yes.
who at one point was a very liberal attorney, and he's a genius, and he's a graduate of I think Harvard.
All right.
He has almost done a 180-degree turn
He sure
himself.
has.
And here is one of the most prominent attorneys in the world that was for governments and presidents and all that, and always was giving writings, and he cannot believe it. And I think that shows a moral bankruptcy that's happening in America right now.
It's happening all over this world. Another quick thing, Iraq, Iran, Syria, to your east and north. Iraq has been sort of quiet, to be honest with you, since we pulled out America. I mean, there's been some little simmer. President Trump did a lot of great things getting rid of ISIS and neutralizing that threat, but they're seeming to make a resurrection. And I will say this, Ruth, I'll just throw this aside in. These attacks on October the 7th had more of an ISIS feel to me of what was going on with the barbarism, even than Hamas. I know Hamas is a butcherous, murderous organization, but there was something about this horrible attack on October the 7th that had ISIS's nature. Because if you go back and read some of the stories that took place in 2010, 11, 12, when Obama was calling them the junior varsity and they were wreaking havoc in that region of Syria and all that, Trump did a lot to neutralize them and destroy them. But now Iraq all of a sudden has entered into this rhetoric and made threats to Israel. It's probably the first time since, I would say, 91, when they shot those Scud missiles into Jerusalem, that they've said things like this. How concerned is the nation and the people looking to your east and north of old enemies that have been rather neutralized up to this point? But see, there's a principle in the world that it's always, and it really goes back to Reagan, who said it, might makes right and weakness breeds danger. And I'm paraphrasing. And if they see America as not being a shield to Israel right now, Israel is wide open. I think your enemies to the east and north become emboldened, and I think this rhetoric's going to just keep getting worse. And look, I'm concerned. It's just a blunt question. Do you see this thing escalating into a regional conflict if this thing don't right?
God willing, it will not become a regional conflict. It is already a regional conflict, by the way, but it's more of an ideological and a verbal with some of these countries. I agree with you 100%. Almost everybody here in Israel believes that what happened with Hamas on October 7th it's the stamp of ISIS. They have taken on that mentality.
They have.
So have the Houthis, and who knows where they're going to go in the north. We don't really know, but it is a scary time. And I haven't been following much what Iraq has said, I'll be honest, but I do know that there's definitely a resurgence of very visual anti-Semitism or anti-Israel, whatever you want to, to us, it's one and the same almost, but I don't think it ever went away. I think what happens when there are ceasefires and like when America finally put Iraq down and all that, so, they were quiet because they needed to be quiet for a while. But then when the axis of evil changes, that enables everybody to reopen up their storerooms of hatred. And I think that's what happened in America and all over the world. I honestly don't believe, and most Jews realize, anti-Semitism will never, ever go away. It's ingrained in certain cultures and people. But yet at certain times, because society won't permit you to act out on any racial hatred. I mean, there's always cultural differences and racial differences, but you have to learn to live together. You don't have to love each other, but you have to learn to be civil and in a social society, interact respectfully. That's gone. And I think, again, with anti-Semitism, we believe every generation, it's our Torah edict that every generation there will be a nation, the nation of Amalek, which is the legacy of the nation of Amalek, that they will come and destroy or try to destroy the Jewish people. The end of days, when Messiah comes, God will take care of it all. But and when we're all praying on different sides of the bench here, but we're all still praying for that time to come. Well said. And it better be soon.
Kate, disagree with the word I just heard out of your mouth, my friend. Listen, I appreciate you so much. I'm going to let you take these last 2 minutes. Tell everybody again about your organization. Most people were with us before, but we always get some new folks. And tell us about your organization, how we can help you right now. We're definitely going to be praying for you. And I encouraged our people last time to help as they feel led to financially. I know there's a lot of needs right now. I think, is like you said, Israel right now, there's never been a time in her history she hasn't needed this, but she needs it more today than she's probably ever needed. It is the love and support of the church here in America and Christians, people that really love the Lord. I'm not just talking about people in name only that say that and then they go out and say ugly things, but I'm talking about true Bible believing, Jesus loving people that see this through the lens of the Bible and see it through the lens of what God sees. Y'all need that love right now. We all need it. Look, and it's your time that we have to.
We all do. We all need to stand united.
Absolutely. How can we help you?
This is the time that God wants us to unite. Thank you, Chris, for giving me the opportunity once again to tell to your listeners that Emunah, which means faith, Enumah Israel is one of Israel's leading social service humanitarian aid organizations. It was started by a group of religious Anglo-Jewish women right around the Holocaust, and it brought children to Israel to give them shelter, and hopefully we were waiting for their families to join. Most their families never did. So that started the Emunah movement of residential care facilities, taking care and providing homes for children who were abused, abandoned, or orphaned. We still have that. That's one of the backbones of Enumah Israel is our residential care facilities. We have one of the largest network of subsidized subsidized daycare centers for children and families that need to put their kids into daycare. We have projects and programs for the elderly, for the Holocaust survivors. We have the Crisis Counseling Center I mentioned that provides ongoing therapy and crisis counseling for those in need in the country. And we're ramping up hugely right now so that we'll be able to provide as much therapy and services to those greatly in need. And that's hundreds of thousands of people ultimately. And I know, thank you, Chris, you were very supportive after we first met, and you personally gave a tremendous gift that has been used towards one of our crisis counseling centers and to enable us to hire more counselors. So one thing to keep in mind, and this is what maybe they'll remember, on a day-to-day basis, Emunah serves over 10,000 children in our entire system. So whether it's the residential care facilities, the schools, the counseling centers, this is what Emunah does. We are here to provide for the families and children of Israel.
Well, I pray that the day comes that
one last thing, Chris.
Go ahead. No, I'm gonna, go ahead.
What a lot of people don't realize, especially in the States, is there's something here called the Israel Prize, which is like the Nobel Peace Prize.
Right.
Emunah's organization, it is so well respected, and it is, again, the third largest in the country, that we have received numerous times the Israel Prize by the government, acknowledging the impact that we have on the Israeli society, on the people of Israel every single day.
Well, got 1 minute. Got one quick question for you. Of all the things that you have seen personally, Ruth, what has been the most grievous in your heart with these survivors, these things? What has been the one thing that has gripped your heart the most, these folks coming back from captivity and the people recovering from this tragedy?
Their eyes, the emptiness in their eyes, because as we all know, our eyes are a window to our soul. And when you see some of these children or women that come back, or older people, and they look vacant, their eyes look dead, that for me has hit home. And also the way the women are the women even who were a part of the rave and everything, that were brutalized and raped and utilized, they were utilized. I think that's the most powerful image I have, but it's their eyes. Their eyes will always look haunted. Well,
my friend, I hope the day comes this year that I will stand on the land of Israel myself. I've never been, and I know it's a weird time to be wanting to come, but I do. I want to come and show support, and I'm praying that we can connect with you more this year through this network and through helping and whatever we can do to help. You got an open door here. I've told you privately and publicly, if things happen, break over there, you need a platform to say something, you've got one right here forever. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in February here in the States, and our prayers with you. And I want to thank you for being with me again tonight here on the McFiles.
Amen. Thank you. And you all should have a blessed holiday, blessed Christmas, and we should all look at a peaceful 2024.
Absolutely. Where's your website? One more time.
www.emunahisrael.org. And Emunah is EMUNAH, Israel. emunahisrael.org.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Ruth,
Okay.
Guggenheim, everybody. We'll be right back. Don't go anyway. We'll be right back. Thank you, Ruth. And there you have it. A beautiful lady right there, inside and out. And God bless her heart for coming on. We had a great time. We really had not planned that out a long time ahead. It just sort of happened this week, and I'm grateful it did, that we could get her in this week one more time before the holidays hit, and so forth. I got a lot to say about that interview, but not right now. I'm going to save my afterthought program until after Bill Federer's interview. It's 8:55. I want you to give us 10 minutes. We're going to queue up Bill's interview. We're going to be right back here on the same network tonight, and we may open the Faith Network up with Bill. And he is going to come and tell us that, Virginia, there really is a Santa Claus. And you've heard this interview before, but not quite like this. It's a little different this time. And he's on his game, trust me. And it's going to be one of the best interviews I think we've done with him. And we got him coming back in January, already booked, probably February too. And he's got a brand new book out, The Rise of the Tyrant King, Part 2. And he's just a great guy. Ruth Guggenheim, what a great lady. And I hope the interview blessed you tonight. And I hope you took into heart what she said, folks, about the situation over there. You know, Ruth has told me she has met some of the survivors. She's not met some of the ones from the kidnappings, but she has talked to the survivors. And folks, I will echo what she said tonight as we close on this early bird special tonight. If there's ever a time that Israel needs our love and support as true Christians, it's right now. This is where your Christianity will either show, or you being seen to be a Christian in name only will show. This is where people that really know Jesus will show, and people who don't know Jesus but run their mouth spirit religiously, they're just religious but they're not really saved, is going to show. This is where people's hearts are revealed. It's these times of history that you really see the cream of the crop come to the top. And you also see the cream of the turd go to the bottom. Because there's a bunch of turd out there tonight, folks. There's a bunch of turd being spread about Israel that is false. It's blatantly false. And it's the same rhetoric of, again, the Nazi Germany party of 1930, and it's despicable. And a lot of these things that are being said are not coming. They're not even coming from the left-wing media. They're coming from within the professing body of Christ, which is sad tonight. There's a difference in the professing body of Christ and the true body of Christ. I'm speaking to the true body of Christ tonight. I can't change the apostates. There ain't no way I can change them. I can have my 2 cents about what they're saying, but I can't change them. I'm not talking to them tonight. I'm talking to you, the remnant, the true body of Christ. Israel needs you right now. Unlike any time before history, she needs you. She needs your prayers. She needs your support. She needs you to help her through getting the truth out about what's going on over there. Financially, certainly, but more than that, it's a spiritual need that they know that there's a group of American people over here that love God and love Christ. They recognize her role, and they recognize what God's doing, even though her darkest days are ahead of her. And we're talking about that over and over every day in our Bible studies in the morning, on Wednesday nights, or Sunday morning, Sunday night programs right now. We've been dealing with Israel for almost 2 months, ever since this event started. She needs you tonight. The Jewish people need you. Do what you can. Not everybody can do the same thing, but we all can show love. We all can show support. And we can all reject and denounce and repudiate anti-Semitism and stand up in faith and courage for God's chosen people. So, my challenge to you tonight is very simple. You can be a coward beyond words and be a spiritual, pathetic coward. Or you can be a courageous warrior for Christ at a time that true love for Israel is at a premium right now, and do the right thing and stand up on the right side. Let me change that wording. You can stand up on God's side of this. And that's going to be up to you tonight. I love you. I'll see you in about 10, 15 minutes. Let me get this Bill Federer interview queued up. I want to thank Ruth Guggenheim for a great, great interview tonight. She's such a dear lady. I just feel her. She's got such a handle. She's coming. She's an American citizen, actually. She lives in Israel. She's from America, originally New York. She's in Israel now. She's been in Israel several years, but her heart is both American and Israeli. So she has a unique perspective, and it's really refreshing to hear folks like that. We're going to have her on a lot more next year, but we're grateful for her. Listen, I'll see you in about 15 minutes. We'll have an afterthought, and we'll discuss all this. Get your questions ready for me after the Bill Federer interview. But until then, McDonald out, at least for now. Have a good night, everybody. We appreciate you being with us on a very special McFiles Thursday night early bird interview with Ruth Guggenheim from Enumah Israel, EnumahIsrael.org. We'll be right back.